The Battle of Ontario continues tonight as the Maple Leafs will try and close it out in 5. There's 2 guys I'm eyeing to get it done. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. What's happening, Dave? How are you feeling on Tuesday?
Feeling good. I'm sure it'll change once puck drop happens. And
you nervous? You nervous for tonight, Dave?
I wouldn't call myself nervous. I'm just like antsy. Like I don't want this again to be one of those things where people bring up, you never know what happens if they can't pull it off in game 5, and it becomes anybody's series after that. I hear a lot of those being thrown out right now.
Well, I do agree with that. Like, it's not must win, but it definitely becomes an interesting series if they do lose game 5, and all of a sudden it's a 3-2 series going back to Ottawa. And the only reason why I say that is because the lack of killer instinct talk will only grow louder. Right now, it's just little whispers as they're up 3-0 and failed to do it once. But if they fail to close it out again tonight, that's where those whispers become a little loud. That's where it'll get talkative. And then you lose game 6 and you got to play a do or die game 7. Those demons are going to be screaming in the faces of the core 4. But yeah, like I don't think the night is necessarily must win, but it would be great just to really get this thing over with, win that 4th game, and then give yourself a couple of days rest heading into a second series. And I feel good about it. Honestly, I do. Toronto going back home. They'll have last change again. They won both games on home ice already earlier. And Craig Berube, I just think as a coach, he's been able to match up really well when he has that last change. So I feel good about it. I think Anthony Stolarz will rebound. He's been pretty solid at winning games coming off of bad performances. So Stolarz should be fine. But ultimately, Dave, like I look at this game tonight, and there's really a couple of guys that I think need to get it done here. And I'm looking at Auston Matthews, who he's the captain now. I think the Maple Leafs or it'd be great, I suppose, if he really made his mark on this series. I'm not sure he's made his mark on the series yet. He only has 1 goal. I think so far you could say this really has been a series of Stolarz, Nyes, and Marner. Would you say those have been probably the 3 key players for the Maple Leafs so far through this series?
I throw John Tavares in there, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can put him in the mix there as well. But we're 4 people deep, and the captain, Auston Matthews, has not shown up in the conversation yet. If he could come alive tonight in game 5, I think that'll go a long way to kind of getting this team to where it needs to get to. And, he played a lot the other night. He played 26 minutes, and he was given the day of given practice off on Monday. So he'll have 2 days off. Sunday was an off day. Monday he didn't skate. So it's 2 days off his feet that he did not have to practice. Hopefully that gives him enough rest to get himself ready to go for tonight's game.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The Leafs have gone to this position, and their best player has not been their best player. So really, all it just takes is and I know I don't like using the flip the switch because like he was good to start the series. I just think that if Matthews were to just hone in on, finding ways to get more of those shots to go in, or, he's doing good things defensively, but in a series like this, you need a complete game from Auston Matthews. You need him to be more of a presence offensively. Like very rare do you see Auston Matthews not bury a chance in tight. Very rare that a chance like he had in overtime go off the post.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the type of moment you're looking for, right? Out of the captain. Like last time the team, was in a situation where they could win and move on, John Tavares was the captain at the time. And he did, in fact, score the game winning goal to send his team through the next round. Tavares had the puck on a stick and he had a half open net and he just rings it off the post in overtime on the power play from the slot. Literally everything kind of aligned for Matthews to send this Senators team packing and put his team through the next round. And he was just a little off. And he's been just a little off all season. It's not his year. I think we all kind of could acknowledge that he's been battling an injury all season long and hasn't miraculously healed. He's just been battling through, and he's still battling through, and it's caused him to be a little off on things all season long. That's why he had a career low 33 goals this year. But at some point, like I still think that he has to come through for this team and say, I know I'm hurting. I know this is tough, but I need to put the team on my back, and I need to have a moment, in this playoffs, in this series where, the organization can look at me and be like, yes, that is why we made him captain. He is our leader. Look at him go. He is the best player. So we haven't seen it yet. He's played well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he hasn't played well. He just hasn't had like that moment, right? Marner's had those moments. Nyes had that moment in the last game on that breakaway goal, right? Tavares has just been consistent. Stolarz has been fantastic. He's stolen a couple of games so far in this series. Just waiting a little bit to get a little bit more out of Matthews and maybe be the difference maker in a game. And I think tonight it would be excellent if he could get that done on home ice in front of Maple Leafs faithful.
I think that would be the perfect kind of poetic effort for Matthews is to do it in front of the home crowd. And look, I got no problem. Like I know some people have been saying he's been invisible. I wouldn't say the guy's been invisible. He just hasn't been himself.
Yeah.
He just hasn't, like we're used to, you've gotten very used to Auston Matthews being, even in last year's, you look at last year's series against Boston, right? When you needed a big play, Auston Matthews, right? That alley-oop pass from Max Domi.
When he was healthy, until he wasn't healthy.
Until eventually he wasn't healthy anymore. But like that's what, like I remember seeing that goal against Boston. I'm like, that's what you need. That's what's been missing. And so again, when he was handed the captaincy, it was of this belief, okay, it's his moment now. It's his team. Everything kind of falls on his shoulders. And it's always been on his shoulders, but now it's like almost like that passing of the torch saying everything is officially on your shoulders now. It hasn't fully, I don't think it's fully been diagnosed. I don't think he's fully digested that now he needs to be the one to really step up in this moment to help the Leafs, just put away bed to any concern or any thought that this year won't be different. Like he needs to show this year's different, and it has to come from him.
Yeah. In terms of individual expected goals, typically we see Auston Matthews up at the top of the leaderboard, or at least he's been in the top 5 in this mark throughout the majority of his career so far through the playoffs. Again, small sample size, so you don't necessarily take this with a grain of salt. But where do you think he ranks in the league right now for individual expected goals? We know he scored once, he's got a goal, but in terms of expected goals, individual, where do you think he ranks?
Like maybe 17th. Like I would say maybe still in the top 20, but not in the top 10.
27th.
Oh.
27th in individual expected goals. And I'm sure if you did that on a per 60 mark, which I can do that in a second, I bet it'd be lower because, you've got guys like Jack Drury and Warren Fogle and Keegan Colasar and Eric Holla ahead of him, right? And those guys play significantly less minutes If I do it to do it by a per 60 basis, let me see where he's kicking now, because I guarantee you it's not going to be 27th. I'm still scrolling. Still scrolling. 41st. So 41st in the NHL in individual expected goals per 60. So he himself has not necessarily been generating a whole lot. The team hasn't been, but I think too, you could look at it and also say too, Matthews is, to come to his defense a little bit, I suppose. I'm not sitting here trying to bury the guy, because I think he's played well. He just hasn't really controlled things that he'd seen in the past. But I also think that that's kind of what Berube is asking of them. Like, they are playing some defensive minutes as well. And, they're not necessarily just looking for those easy offensive zone draws. Like, those guys are often, playing against the top lines each and every night. Right. So, I think that's something that you also do have to keep in mind when we look at these numbers. But yeah, I think Auston Matthews, I'm just waiting for him to have that moment, and we'll see if it can happen tonight. John Tavares was also back at practice today after missing a chunk of time in the last game. He finally spoke out about the hit from Artem Zub. Let's come back and get into that, what he thought, what Berube thought, and we'll continue to tee up Game 5 tonight of the Battle of Ontario. Leafs, Sens, can Toronto get it done? We'll discuss continuing here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab tickets, even for the must-see matchups. Prices actually drop the closer you get to puck drop, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off of tickets. Their all-in pricing shows the total cost up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout, and the app even allows you and shows you panoramic seat view, so you know exactly what your seats are going to look like before you even buy them. And with the Game Time ticket coverage, I know I'm protected, whether it's a cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or their 24-hour return guarantee. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Thinking about grabbing some late tickets to go to the game tonight? Again, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $20 off when using Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you on a Tuesday ahead of Game 5 of the Battle of Ontario. The Maple Leafs leading the series 3-1, looking to close things out. That's been a bit of a struggle with this team, with this organization, with this core. Only one time in 13 total opportunities to close out games over the last 8 years have they actually got it done. And that was in Game 6 a couple of years ago against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's the only time that they've actually been able to win the fourth game. They'll be looking to do it tonight, Dave. So I'll get your final thought a little bit later in the podcast of whether or not you think it's going to be done and what maybe the score will be. I'll get you to give me a prediction. But I want to talk a little bit about John Tavares and kind of what happened in Game 4. So he finally spoke out about the hit that he took from Artem Zub. Definitely a high hit to the head area. It looked like, at the very least, there was no penalty. I'm also surprised there was also no supplemental discipline that came out today. I saw like 2 or 3 fines from around the league come out today from the games over the weekend, and Zub not one of them. So I don't know, like the refs missed it on the ice. The league felt that it wasn't worthy of a fine or a suspension or anything. I don't know. It kind of seemed bizarre to me that Zub got zero punishment for what happened, whether it be penalty, fine, suspension. Just it was definitely a dirty play that knocked Tavares out of the game. Check to the head. Seemed like something that at least could have been looked at or talked about to me.
For me, it was maybe the NHL is just too busy looking at all the other stuff that's going on in the other series. Montreal, they've been how many fines
Dude,
have been thrown out?
last week there was an investigation about Nick Cousins flipping pucks down the other side of the ice, and you're going to tell me that you're more invested in that investigation than an on ice check to the head? What are we doing? What are we talking about here?
It should have at least at minimum been a fine for interference.
Yes,
Like a $5,000 fine. Just something that says what you did is not allowed. It was bad enough of a play that a concussion spotter is like, yeah, we need to make sure we check that this guy is not, singing Daisy somewhere else because he just got knocked in the head, right?
We should mention that actually. It was announced today. Tavares did say that he was pulled by the concussion spotter. That's why he left the game for 10 minutes and was unavailable for that 4-minute power play. He was pulled off the ice by the spotter. So that was told to us today by John Tavares. I don't believe that was public knowledge until today.
Berube didn't say whether or not it was a concussion spotter. So that was like we had a feeling because even on the broadcast, like, oh, he's going to the room, right? We had a feeling that's what was going on, but it was never really ever confirmed.
Well, I had a feeling that maybe he felt something, but it wasn't necessarily, pointed out that the concussion spotter pulled him. And if the concussion spotter noticed a check to the head and a snapback and a possible injury, how the hell the guys on the ice didn't notice that and get the penalty, or how the hell Gary Bettman hasn't, or George Peros hasn't had any supplemental discipline is beyond me. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, Tavares, he came out today and obviously, he felt that it was kind of ludicrous that there was no discipline there. Berube did not like the hit at all. He thought that it was a check to the head and not a very good hit. But I don't know. It seems like the Senators and Zub got away with one, if you ask me.
I think so too. The one thing you obviously don't want to have happen is try the attempt for retribution.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. They didn't do anything. What I would say is be on your guard, because if the Senators feel like now that they can try to take some liberties and try to get that, physical edge in Game 5, you got to be ready to respond. I know there's a few people were kind of messaged me like, nobody went after Zub after Tavares was knocked down. I'm like, we kind of discussed it, but I don't even think if anybody was really thinking that that's how it happened, or even was aware of how the play kind of happened. And especially in overtime, you're not taking a penalty in overtime for retribution on a play that the refs didn't deem was a penalty. So if you retaliate, you're likely going to be going to the box and putting your team at a disadvantage. So, and I'm sure the NHL or the refs will probably tell some of the players, don't be trying to go for any of that, revenge narrative, because, it's going to land you in some trouble. The refs have called some silly penalties in this series, so they're waiting to call the serious stuff. Right. The thing is, out of all the series, this has been the more tame one.
Yeah.
Right. You look at
which is funny because we all kind of expected it to be a little bit more of a circus. The Battle of Ontario, Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs for the first time. I thought that he would definitely be more of an aggressor in this series, and he hasn't quite done it yet. And I wonder too if it's just the fact that they got dinged so hard in that first game. The refs tried to set the standard, and it maybe scared the Sens a little bit into playing on that line, and I think that's what they have to do to be effective. And maybe now they're just trying to figure it out still, right? That's the youth, the inexperience kind of coming to play here when you talk about the Senators, right? It's the first time that they're playing playoff hockey. And we talked about it ad nauseum going into the series of whether or not, that experience was going to be a benefit for the Leafs. And maybe that's where it is, where they don't quite know what the standard is and it's affecting their play, and they're not just playing fluidly. They're thinking twice before making that check, or thinking twice before, lifting that stick, or, getting a body on a player, whatever it may be. It's possible that could be, what's going on with them too. All right, let's take one more break. We'll come back, and we'll finish up our preview into tonight's game. I want to get your thoughts on the goalie situation too. So we'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NHL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team to win or diving into player props, from goal scorers to shots to power play points to hits, whatever. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game starts, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus in bonus bets today. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. The Locked On Leafs podcast is free and available wherever you get a podcast, and it's also up on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, we're on our road to 10,000 subscribers, 10K. And once we get there, we're giving away a Leafs jersey. So please subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Leafs podcast. A daily Maple Leafs centric podcast. And your Toronto Maple Leafs in action tonight, taking on the Ottawa Senators, a chance to close it out, a chance to finally get rid of Ottawa and move on to the second round for just the second time in 9 years. 9 cracks at it, as the Leafs have made the playoffs every season in the Matthews-Marner era, but only one time have they won a series, 1-12 in closeout games in the last 8 years. Dave, do they make that number 2-12 tonight?
I feel good about their chances too. I think there's something to be said. Like, even though Ottawa did win, it took a lot for Ottawa to win that game.
Dude, they had 4 shots in the last 2 periods. Like, you probably play that game, 100 more times. The Leafs probably win that, realistically.
I forgot to do the good old deserve to win. Sorry.
Deserve to win-o-meter?
Yeah, something would tell me that actually, I'm going to go quickly look at it now. Like, I guarantee if you play that game a few times over, the Leafs were at 54%. Like, even though Ottawa looked like they had a lot of the chances, they're putting up a lot of scoring chances in front. As you said, only 4 shots on goal.
Yeah.
In the final 2 periods. Like, you're not winning many games with that.
Yeah. And if Toronto can just continue to play that lockdown defensive style, it looks like they've got a nice, nucleus that they've kind of figured out that they like in the bottom, in the bottom 6. You've got Scott Laughton, Lorentz, and Calle Jarnkrok. Like, those guys have been great, right? Though that's been a solid line defensively. They've been one of the best in terms of shutting down the opposition. So I think they like that mix there. What the top line has been able to do, defensively. They probably want a little bit more of that second line, I would say. Here's one player who I think has been a bit of a passenger in this series that I do want to come alive tonight, because I mentioned I think it's time Matthews has his moment. William Nylander hasn't necessarily had his moment yet either, and which is interesting because Nylander's been known to be the bigger and better playoff performer, we'll call it, over those other two. Like, he's actually put up the numbers that you like to see, where the other two haven't quite done that. So that's one player for me. I don't know about you, but I want to see a little bit more from Nylander. I want to see the compete in the fight, the back check, more forecheck. Like, I know he's not Matthew Nyes. I don't need him to be going and winning pucks in the corner. But a little better back check would be nice. I think that Nylander needs to step up a little bit tonight too.
Oh, I found that especially the 2 games in Ottawa, other than the pass to OEL on the goal, Nylander was being very pedestrian. Like, on a breakaway, decides to take a slap shot.
Feels like he's getting a little antsy, and he's, I don't know, maybe waiting for those breakaway opportunities. Like, as opposed to playing a 200-foot game, and I get it, he's not a defensive forward. He's always been a bit of a liability, but like, it's the playoffs. Like, this is what's asked and necessary to succeed. It's what's being asked of you by Craig Berube. So I'm surprised that we've gone 4 games into this thing and you still kind of see him lingering around the blue line, waiting to get that breakout pass to try and, score on a breakaway. I don't know. For me, I want to see him down below the dots, playing solid, defense as well as he possibly can, 5-man unit type of thing, and then help break the puck out and try and generate and score. I want to see him, take the puck to the net a little bit more too. It's been a lot of stop ups when he gets into over the blue line, little stop up, and that's how things stay perimeter. You give Ottawa a chance to reset in their zone when you do that. Put the pedal to the metal. Do what Matthew Nyes did, right? Get a good knee bend, take it to the net, take charge, and try and beat the goalie that way. Or maybe he creates a rebound or a goalie gets out of position, goes off a net, you score a garbage, greasy goal, goes off a body. I don't know. But it's a hell of a lot better when you're direct taking a puck to the net than a stop up and, you try and just kind of pass it around the perimeter, right?
Well, that's kind of been my problem with him in the series is that it just doesn't look like he's really forced the issue that much. And, there's a lot of things that he can do very well. He doesn't necessarily need to always take it to the net. He's got a good shot, but we haven't really seen that in this series. Yeah. On the power play, he's supposed to be that. Like when Tavares went down, I know everybody was talking about how big the loss was, and it was a big loss. And yes, Auston Matthews maybe isn't at his best. You still got William Nylander. He's supposed to be that other option that you can rely on. And so I'm hoping that Berube finds a way to get him going. Because I feel like, if Matthews and Marner, we know that they in elimination games, they haven't exactly been the least best players. If Berube's got to figure out what it is about Nylander that he needs to, give him that kind of extra little jolt to get him going, because I kind of feel like the 2 games in Ottawa, it wasn't the best we've come to expect from Nylander. You saw
the guy's making $11.5 million now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, if you're making $11.5 million, you gotta compete on both ends of the ice. Like you're not paid $11.5 to score 45 and say, up yours on defense. You got to be a 200-foot player come playoff time making $11.5 million.
I just see
at least show me the compete level.
I just see that in the playoffs, if you're not going to do the work at both ends, you're not going to see a lot of success. This is why, I'm not fully going to put on the panic alarm on Auston Matthews, because he is playing a lot of those tough defensive minutes, a lot on the PK. So he's contributing on the other end. Nylander, it hasn't been there as much. And I'm very curious. Right now, Pontus Holmberg is back up on that second line.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why they did that. I just felt like with Bobby McMahon there was more jam for that line. And I'm surprised Berube didn't at least keep that switch from game 4 for game 5.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised for that as well. But if Berube doesn't like what he sees in the first 10 minutes of the game, take out the line blender, and I'm sure if that second line doesn't look great, they'll do something to shake things up, because you can't. I mean, you simply can't have the same start you had to start game 4, right? You can't get outworked that way. Got to come out. The home crowd, they've been good in the playoffs, right? They've been in their seats cheering. Goalies go chants. They're there by the anthem, right? The suits come out in the playoffs, but they come out in jerseys instead of suits, and they actually cheer, and it's nice to see. So hopefully that can continue tonight in game 5, and the Maple Leafs can try and get a win on home ice. I think they get it done, though. I really do. And to me, it's really the final door to kick down. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about this a couple times on the podcast, how it seems like they keep checking boxes off this year in this playoff series. And I guess early part of the run has been very different than the rest, right? They're getting production from the core 4. The power play's been red hot. The blue line is getting production. Like, there's just a lot of things. They're getting great goaltending from Anthony Stolarz. Like, there's just a lot of things that are going their way, and things that have been not necessarily there for them in the past. And I think the one final box that needs to be checked is, can they close it out? Can they close out games? Because that's the thing, right? Like that lack of killer instinct is still alive and well. Can you knock that door down too? If they can do that, I think a lot of Leafs Nation will finally buy in to this year being different. So that's what I hope they can do tonight. Just don't even let it get to a game 6. Don't let it get there. Don't let those whispers become very loud yells, I guess, for like, right? Like right now it's quiet. Don't let those whispers get any louder. That's for sure. For those demons in the head. You don't want that to happen. I believe Stolarz. He's starting.
Yeah.
It is the right call. But is there any concern at all about the fact that this guy's now, it'll be his 5th game played in a row and 5th game in what, 11? No, when they start the series last Sunday. So it'll be his 5th game in 9 nights. Any concerns there for a guy who's pretty much just been in a tandem split all season and never been a true starter in his career? With 3 overtimes tucked in between.
Yeah. 3 straight there. Like, I think there was something to be said about Berube being like, sometimes teams don't like the 2 days off in between, especially because like the Leafs don't have a tough travel, right? It's a quick flight from Toronto, from Ottawa to Toronto,
40-minute little cat nap.
Yeah, I think with Stolarz, I think that's kind of where he probably saw the benefit of having that extra day. Because we saw that the Leafs gave him that rest day after practice for a practice after game. Was it game 3 or game 2? One of those two. So it was just like that was my own concern. That was probably the big concern if you asked many experts about going with this sort of unexperienced goaltending tandem. It's not their ability to get wins. It's can they carry the weight of being the guy when the time comes? Can they handle the workload? Because they really haven't. And now I think the extra day off will help. But I think if you start to see Stolarz not look sharp, you can probably point to, I'm sure like the Senators are starting to maybe figure some things out and how to try to beat him because he played him already 4 times. But you're also you get concerned if he's not as sharp because he's just not able to handle the workload. And so I mean, I was like, I kind of open when Joseph Voll wasn't at practice, and I'm like, strange. And then we just find out he's under the weather. So like, of course, but I think with Stolarz, you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt and you say, look, you've already got us 3 wins in this series. Get us 1 more. Then you'll get some good time off before round 2. Yeah. Put it all out there for game 5. That would be my message if I was talking to Stolarz.
So Anthony Stolarz all season long had not lost back-to-back games until that little rut that he hit in March. So from March 3rd to March 15th, he played 5 games, lost all 5, went on a 5-game losing streak. So that's the only time that he lost back-to-back games, and that was when he started and lost 5 starts in a row. Outside of that, he's been awesome. And I should note that he only has 1 loss since those 5 in a row, and it was the last game. He went on to win 11 straight games for the Maple Leafs after that 5-game losing streak. But yeah, it's safe to say that this guy's responded pretty well. You take that one little blip, that 2-week blip out of the season, he hasn't lost back-to-back starts at all outside of that little 5-game sample size. So safe to say that there should be belief in the room, belief by the coaching staff, and belief in himself that Anthony Stolarz will bounce back after what wasn't a bad game by Stolarz, but it wasn't a great game, and it wasn't necessarily, he wasn't as sharp as he had typically been throughout the series. And I wonder if like the lightened workload throughout the game, kind of played a role there. Sometimes goaltenders are just far better when they're facing a lot of rubber, and that was a different pace for him, and possibly it threw his game off a little bit. I don't know, but I think Stoley the goalie will get it done here in Game 5, because if he doesn't, I think there's a serious conversation for Wooly to enter the chat for Game 6. You get to Game 6, if this thing has to go 6, I think there's a better chance of Joseph Woll starting that one than Stoley. That's my take on the goaltending situation. He has a chance to close it out tonight, but if he doesn't, then I think the Woll conversation gets real loud.
I think so, especially if, when you consider how the game could potentially go. If it's just, I would say if it's similar to what you saw in Game 4, you can have the conversation. But I think if you're Craig Berube will try to say, look, it was a close game. He gave us a chance to win. But if it's a game where things just totally go wrong and the Senators really pour it on, and look, we're not expecting this to happen.
No.
But you gotta understand that there's a possibility. It's a tiny possibility.
Well, and
you got to be ready for that conversation.
It's also, proven to be somewhat of a successful tactic, switching a goalie and giving your team a bit of a jolt, seeing if they respond to a goalie change, right? Like, look at Edmonton. Their series changed on a dime when they yanked Stu Skinner and said, no, we're going with Calvin Pickard. He started Game 3. They won that game. They went back to him for Game 4. Won that game again, right? No one thought Calvin Pickard was going to be starting playoff games for that team, but they made that change, and it's worked out for the better. That was after 2 losses. If Stoley loses 2 losses in a row, I think it's honestly not performance-based for me. I think it's just, you can make the argument that if it's a similar game, possibly could be getting tired. That is definitely in the realm of possibility, considering, how the season has gone for him. And I think it's easy for the coaching staff to just say, hey, we knew we were going to use 2 goalies. And at some point, we told Joe to be ready. And, now's the right time. We knew we were going to have to use both goalies at some point, and now's the right time. Hopefully it can get a jolt into the team and they can close it out in 6. I think that's the easy sell to the fan base and to the media if that's the route that they want to go in. But let's hope that we don't have to get there, because they had a chance to just end it tonight, and then everyone can kind of go home, rest up, and get ready for what looks to be a rematch of 2 years ago, because the Florida Panthers, another win over the Tampa Bay Lightning, lead that series 3-1, and it's likely we see a Leafs-Panthers series for round 2, just like a couple of years ago. But hopefully Toronto can put up a little bit more of an effort this time around than they did last time they faced them. There certainly shouldn't be any "we want Florida" chants, at the very least, coming out of Maple Leaf Square, if they can finish the deal off tonight. I don't want no "we want Tampa" chants either, by the way, if anyone's going down to the game. You don't want anyone. Just celebrate the win, but don't claim or call for any team. Don't need that happening tonight.
Don't need that smoke.
No, we don't need that. Don't need that karma coming back at us. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right, Dave. All right. I think they win. I think Matthews scores 3-1. 3-1 in regulation. A regulation win tonight. I think we see it. Low scoring. It'll be close, like maybe even 3-1 with an empty netter at that point. But I think the Leafs get it done tonight and go through. What say you, Dave?
I'll go Leafs win 4-2. I think JT gets the first goal.
JT opens the scoring.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Let us know down below. How does Game 5 work out in your mind? Or hit us up on social media. You can follow me at Mickey_Canuck on Twitter, Mickey Canuck on Instagram. You can follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow Locked On Leafs on both platforms as well. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow to recap Game 5 of the Battle of Ontario. Leafs, Sens, 7 o'clock puck drop at Scotiabank Arena. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.